What if the real pandemic of our time isn't physical but spiritual? You can have a job, friends, a family, a phone full of contacts, and a calendar full of events, and still feel completely alone, completely empty. You scroll, you work, you smile when expected. But deep inside, there's a quiet void, a sense that something is missing, not broken, just absent. And the silence it leaves behind is deafening. Why do so many people feel this way today? Why, in a world more connected than ever, do we feel so disconnected? From others, from life, from ourselves? This video is not just about pain, and it's about awakening. It's about the ancient wisdom and modern science that reveal what that emptiness really is, and how it may be the start of your most important healing. Because sometimes what feels like a void is actually a space being cleared for something real, something whole, something you. Let's begin. The shape of emptiness. Emptiness is not always loud. It doesn't always scream in panic or collapse in grief. Sometimes it just lingers, like a low hum behind the noise of everyday life. You get through your day. You do what's expected. But there's a numbness beneath it all, a sense of going through the motions without actually being in them. This is the modern epidemic. And it's not weakness, it's not laziness. It's a spiritual disconnection masked as functionality. Psychologists call it anhedonia, the inability to feel joy. Sociologists call it existential dislocation, the loss of meaning in a hyper-stimulated world. The mystics have long known it by another name: soul loss, the slow forgetting of the self. Marcus Aurelius, writing from a Roman battlefield, warned of this disconnection centuries ago. People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills. But you can retreat into yourself whenever you want. But what happens when we no longer know how to retreat inward? When we've filled every empty space with a distraction and every quiet moment with noise? Emptiness then becomes the body's last message, a whisper saying, "You've wandered too far, come home." This chapter is not about diagnosing you. It's about recognizing the unspoken ache many silently carry and realizing you're not broken, you're disconnected. And the path forward is not in more doing. It begins in remembering that you are still in there. The noise that numbs us. We live in the loudest age in human history, not just in sound, but in stimulation. Our phones, our feeds, our calendars are filled to the brim. But our hearts remain hollow. We weren't designed to consume 1,000 emotions before breakfast. To be plugged into a digital stream where joy, tragedy, vanity, and violence collide in the same scroll. It overwhelms the nervous system, it floods the psyche, and gradually it dulls the soul. Psychiatrist Dr. Anna Lemke refers to this as dopamine burnout, a state where overstimulation leads to emotional blunting, like a light dimmer turned down so slowly you don't realize how dark it's gotten. Add to this a culture of endless productivity, where worth is measured in output and rest is labeled as laziness. You begin to feel like a machine with a beating heart. But ancient wisdom tells a different story. The Tao Te Ching teaches that to be empty is to be full. In Zen Buddhism, the concept of shoshin, it's a beginner's mind, reminds us to return to simplicity, presence, and openness. So why do we feel empty? Because we are constantly being filled with everything but ourselves. To heal, we must first quiet the noise, turn down the input, let the system reset. Because only when the mind is still, can we begin to hear the voice we've been drowning out all along. Disconnection is the real wound. Beneath the surface of emptiness is a deeper pain, disconnection. Not just from others, but from yourself. You stop recognizing your own reflection. You laugh without feeling joy. You succeed without feeling fulfilled. And the more you perform, the less you remember who you are without the mask. This isn't a modern problem, it's a human one. But our age has made it worse by glorifying separation. We're taught that independence is power, that vulnerability is weakness, that asking for help means failure. And so we shrink into ourselves. Isolated, overstimulated, pretending to be fine. Yet every culture has warned against this fragmentation. In Ubuntu philosophy from Southern Africa, there's a saying, "I am because we are." In Stoicism, Epictetus wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids." And in indigenous healing traditions, community is not a luxury, it's medicine. Modern research confirms this. Loneliness is now considered as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not just emotionally, physically. Because disconnection isn't just psychological. It disrupts your body's rhythms, your brain's chemistry, your heart's resilience. To feel empty is often to feel cut off. From others, from meaning, from life. Healing begins when we admit, we were never meant to do this alone. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not keep it all together, but whisper, "I feel empty," and let someone sit in that space with you. The trauma of numbness. When life hurts, we shut down. It's not weakness, it's wiring. The nervous system knows when a wound is too deep, too sudden, too overwhelming, so it numbs you to survive. But here's the paradox. What once protected you from pain can later block you from joy. This is the trauma we rarely speak of. Not dramatic or explosive, but subtle and long-lasting. The slow erosion of aliveness. the silence after the scream, the frozen feeling when you should be celebrating, connecting, feeling, but instead feel nothing at all. Dr. Gabor Mate says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you. You may have learned early on that your feelings were too much, or that your needs weren't safe to express, so you became who the world needed you to be, but in the process, lost touch with who you actually were. Ancient spiritual traditions recognize this form of inner exile. In shamanic healing, it's called soul fragmentation, the splintering of self due to unprocessed pain. The remedy wasn't pills, it was return, a ritual, a reconnection, a remembering. Modern healing follows similar paths. Somatic therapy, inner child work, journaling, breath work, each a doorway to re-enter what we once left behind. Emptiness then is not a failure. It's a signal, a soft knock on the door of your own body. And maybe healing isn't about fixing anything. Maybe it's about finally listening to the silence that's been trying to speak all along. The mirror of meaning. What fills the void? Not noise, not distraction, not achievement, but meaning. Emptiness isn't just the absence of emotion, it's the absence of purpose. A soul unanchored, a life without orientation. And in a culture that measures success by speed and status, we forget to ask, what is this all for? Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." He called it existential vacuum, the widespread feeling of emptiness when life is lived without direction or inner connection. And today it's everywhere. Because when we're told we are just consumers, when we replace community with competition, silence with stimulation, presence with performance, the soul starves. But here's the truth. Meaning isn't found. It's made. It lives in the small moments, the quiet acts of courage, the decision to show up even when you feel hollow, the reaching out, the slowing down, the remembering. Ancient traditions knew this. The Stoics taught that living in alignment with nature, with your deeper values, is the key to a fulfilled life. Indigenous wisdom reminds us that meaning is rooted in connection, to land, to spirit, to each other. You don't need to have all the answers. You only need to start listening to the questions. Because often what feels like emptiness is actually the beginning of awakening. The space where your real life, your meaningful life, begins to take root. Practices that reconnect you. Healing emptiness isn't about a single breakthrough. It's about slow, sacred remembering. A return to yourself, one small ritual at a time. The most effective remedies are often the simplest. Stillness. Just 10 quiet minutes a day. No scrolling, no numbing, no noise. This is where the soul begins to speak again. Journaling. Not to impress, not to achieve, but to ask, what do I feel? What do I long for? Your answers might surprise you. Nature. Go to where life unfolds without rush or performance. Trees don't hurry, rivers don't hustle. And yet, everything moves, everything grows. Mindful awareness. The breath, a cup of tea, the warmth of sunlight. These are not distractions from life. They are life. Connection. Not with everyone, but with someone. Healing happens in presence, in being seen, in not pretending. These practices aren't solutions, they're invitations. They help you shift from numbness to noticing, from drifting to grounding, from emptiness to intimacy with life. Ancient traditions understood the power of ritual, not as superstition, but as sacred structure. Even modern neuroscience now confirms that regular acts of mindfulness and connection rewire the brain toward presence, peace, and purpose. The path is not to be more, it's to become whole again. And in that wholeness, the emptiness begins to dissolve. Not by force, but by gentle remembrance of who you are and always. The return to wholeness. What if the emptiness you feel isn't something to run from, but something to listen to? Because maybe that hollow space inside you is sacred. Maybe it's the part of you that refuses to be silenced by busyness, applause, or superficial goals. Maybe it's the truest part of you asking for your attention. In ancient Sufi mysticism, there's a saying, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." This is not poetic consolation. It is profound truth. That ache in your chest, it means your soul is still alive. That strange yearning when you're alone, it means something deeper in you remembers that life can be more. When you feel empty, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're ready. Ready to stop chasing things that cannot nourish you. Ready to stop shrinking for approval or numbing for survival. Ready to remember, wholeness isn't a destination. It's a relationship with yourself, with life, with the present moment. And yes, healing is hard. It's messy. It's not a perfect arc. It's a spiral of forgetting and returning again and again. But every time you return stronger, softer, more fully you. So if you feel empty, take heart. You are not alone. And you are not lost. You are becoming. From emptiness to awakening. If you've made it this far, maybe it's because something in this message spoke to something in you. Not the version of you that performs. Not the version of you that smiles on cue. But the quiet, sacred self. The one who has always known there's more to life than just existing. We live in a time of numbing and of noise, of distraction, of soul fatigue. But there is another way. A path of presence. Of remembering. Of rebuilding your inner life from the inside out. Your emptiness is not a failure. It's an invitation to slow down, to reconnect, to come home. And if this video planted even the smallest seed of truth in you, if it reminded you that you're not alone, not broken, not beyond repair, then let that be enough for today. Tomorrow will come, and with it, another chance to breathe deeper, to listen closer, to live fuller. If this spoke to your soul, help others find it too. Share your thoughts below. We read every single one. Like this video if it resonated. Subscribe for more soul awakening content every week. And share this with someone who might need it more than you realize. Thank you for being here. You are not empty. You are becoming whole.